Hi, I am Sarah Rodman, the TV editor here at the Los Angeles Times. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm so excited to be joined today by one of my very favorite actors from Westworld, one of my very favorite shows, Mr. Lewis Herthum. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Absolutely. But before we start talking about Westworld, I have to know, do people ever come up to you and are like, I want to shake Detective Andy's hand?
Yes, occasionally.
For the Murder, She Wrote fans out there.
Right, yeah, no, it's surprising the age of some of the people that do because, you know, the demographic on that show was older. But
a little bit older.
I've actually met some young and, you know, they are now, you know, in their 20s and 30s who used to watch the show with their grandparents or parents and stuff. So yeah, occasionally.
But the shelf life of that show is so great. That's one of those ones that if it's on, I am embroiled in the Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah, and you know, I don't, me too. If it comes on, I watch it because it's really, it's so much fun to watch that style of TV, you know, because that's a long, you know, everything is kind of different now.
Yes, absolutely.
It's quite different the way that it's shot and everything. So yeah, and of course it's extremely nostalgic.
And I mean, it's from a time period of shows. I mean, it's certainly a little after Little House and things like that. But Seventh Heaven, where it was like it was a murder show, but it was like sort of much more wholesome and friendly.
Tune in and see who gets murdered this week. You
right.
know, maybe two.
But you got an opportunity to work with Angela Lansbury, which is unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable. Yes, it truly was. And people ask me all the time, you know, what's she like? And I just say she's exactly like you think she is.
Right.
She's just the sweetest, most approachable and kind person. I think it was about a year or so ago, she was doing Blythe Spirit down here at the Amundsen, and went to see her. And I sent her a card, so she had someone come out and ask me to come backstage and say hello. And I mean, she stole the show, by the way. She was 90.
Oh my God.
She's 91 now. She'll be, I'm pretty sure, 92 in October. Extraordinary.
Yeah, it's amazing. And thinking about Angela Lansbury made me think you get to work with these phenomenal British actors. You fast forward 20 years and you're working with Anthony Hopkins, who I have to tell you, when I interviewed him at the beginning of the show, he singled you out in my interview. He's like, oh my goodness, this actor is wonderful. Did you watch the pilot? He's so amazing. And he singled you out. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew that.
I didn't, but thank you.
And I was like, yes, absolutely. And he talked, as well as other cast members who've played regular human people on Westworld, at how impressive it is, the spectrum that you all have to run through when you're going from that very quiet analysis mode to, I mean, in your case, sinister, poignant, sadness, anger, like all in the space of just a few seconds in some cases. So I'm curious if there was a trick not a trick, but like something that you used to get into that.
If I could sum it up in one word, it would be preparation. And luckily, I had a great deal of time. I say a great deal of time in the, you know, when talking about how sometimes we get a script and the next day you're shooting it.
Right.
I think I had, because much of what you see in that scene I did at my audition. And after the first audition, I came back the second time for Lisa Joy and John Papsidero, and you know, I had developed a lot of the quirky stuff and the, what I call the hiccuping, the, you know, kind of sound and everything. So once I got cast, we still had a little bit of time before shooting that scene, and I went in and with Lisa, just Lisa, and well, I read through the scene with Anthony and Jeffrey and Jonah, but then I went through it full bore a couple of times with Lisa and Jonah, so I knew what I was going to do going in there. And as far as the transitions, I don't know, I just. If you're prepared and you can really
and you're in the moment, knowing what you need to do.
And of course, people actually have said, you know, and I hope this comes off as the compliment I want it to be. They're like, oh God, it must have been hard doing that with Sir Anthony Hopkins, and I'm like, no, he made it easier. He's such an amazing presence, and the focus. I mean, you can even watch that scene and you look at the way he's looking at me. I mean, the focus was amazing, and there's just a generosity of spirit that just exudes from this man. So I'm very flattered and honored to hear that he mentioned me because I just could sit here and talk for 30 minutes about him.
I mean, he really is extraordinary, and you have the extra sort of added, I don't know if it's a benefit or a hindrance of being naked while this is happening.
Yes, it was that. It was that.
But is that something that, I mean, you're an actor, you've done this, that just goes away after a certain amount of time?
Well, it
because there's a
did.
bunch of people in the room.
Yes, it's true. But let me first say that the professionality with which it was handled and the respect, for that situation is at the highest level. Mm-hmm. So it does go away. I mean, I obviously had a little bit more to worry about or think about than being, without clothes in that
right.
scene. Without, and we were chatting between the takes and, he's doing these amazing impressions. The man can do impressions. He can, we talked about his, because I asked him about his music. He's an amazing composer, which I'm sure you know. For anybody that hasn't listened to it, go to YouTube and listen to And the Waltz Goes On by Anthony Hopkins. It was performed by Andre Rieu in Vienna. Amazing. So I was asking him, what was a more amazing moment, winning the Oscar or hearing your
composition?
So we talked about a lot.
What was the
things.
answer?
I don't remember him ever giving me one because we just started talking,
right.
talking about music and so forth.
It was probably different experiences. But I mean,
I'm
for
sure.
you've worked with a lot of great people. I mean, you've had such an interesting career. You've done the entire alphabet soup of the CSI, NCIS, JAG, all of like the episodic television. And you've worked with a lot of great people. But I mean, he is certainly at the high end of that. And you're a professional actor, so you do your job. But like the first time you meet him, is there a little bit of like,
oh, are you kidding? Yes. We, for the first rehearsal, that read-through, was asked to come. I got the job on Friday. Mm-hmm. I got the word on a Friday. Mm-hmm. I got the word that I was still in the mix on Thursday, mm-hmm. which I had forgotten about. It was weeks. Mm-hmm. And my manager called me to tell me that I didn't get a job that I was up for. And he's like, it's not going to go our way. But, we still have Westworld. And I went, what? I said, I'm still in the mix for that? And he goes, yeah. And then nothing, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. That's all I need to know.
Right.
And then the next day, I got the call. My daughter, who's sitting over there, was actually with me. It was a great moment, and was at Friends for dinner and started screaming and hollering. And then I got a call, we'd love you to come in on Monday and rehearse with Sir Anthony Hopkins and Jeffrey Wright and Jonah Nolan. And I'm like, Friday already? So
no big deal.
So I did, and like that, I'm introduced to Lewis. This is Anthony. I can't remember if he said Sir Anthony Jonah, mm-hmm. Sir Anthony Hopkins, or just Anthony Hopkins. He goes, call me Tony. Oh, as I'm sure he, he always he loves to be called Tony. Yeah. He's so down to earth, and so we read through it. And I was hoping, I didn't go through we just basically read it and talked mm-hmm. about it. And then halfway through, J.J. Abrams walks in. So as if there wasn't enough intimidation in the room. But they're all just so incredibly nice and professional. And so that was quite an experience.
I bet. And when Evan sat on our red couch, she was praising you as well. And to me, one of the really interesting things about the show for you all and for a lot of the host characters is that you had to keep doing saying the same things and doing the same actions over and over again, but saying them as if it was the very first time, because for the host, it was the very first time that you were saying it.
That's right.
And there is something to be said about, for stage actors, for film actors, you have some repetition in what you do anyway, but the performative nature of it, was that difficult to sort of keep it fresh?
I think, again, I would go back, and I use this word a lot when people ask me about this, is preparation, because if it's sort of like doing a stage play, okay? Mm-hmm. When you do a stage play, you've had weeks of rehearsal. Mm-hmm. When you go out there and you can literally memorize, you really usually memorize the entire play.
Right.
You know the other people's lines, you know your lines, and the only way you do that is preparation and repetition. So, and there's a mindset that goes with it, without question. But once you, and actually, oddly enough, I read Tony Hopkins mention that, I think he said he reads the script like 200 times, and then he just goes in and does it. And because it's there, it's in your head, and when it's there and you know what it is, you can say it differently, because I'm sure it was different every time we did it, especially in a case with what I was doing that was so, frenetic, and I'm sure it wasn't the same every time. So again, you just sort of, open the gates and go.
Right, exactly. So I know that you may not even know anything about season 2, much less be able to tell us anything about it. But can you tell us anything about it?
I sure can. Nothing. I know absolutely zero. I know I'm going to be in it.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, which is
but
really
you
exciting.
You don't even know that you will necessarily be Jack Abernathy, right?
Peter
Abernathy,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I have no clue. I have no clue what
Because
I'll be.
I feel like where did we leave him? Because he was glitching, right? Like everybody was.
Right. Well, that was in the pilot. You actually last see Peter when he's being downloaded with 35 years of crucial data from Westworld in episode 8, and then you hear about, Sizemore comes in and tells Charlotte in episode 10 that he's managed to give Abernathy a semblance of a personality, and then of course he's supposed to get him out of the park, and then I guess they're going to use him to download the knowledge.
For the outside, you were going to be the mole, basically.
Yeah, and but all hell broke loose, and Sizemore goes back, and not only Peter's gone, but everybody's gone.
Right.
So I have no idea where Peter is.
Right. And he might not even understand what he knows.
Well, he's going to be somewhat of a simpleton, according to what he said. And there was dialogue, a little bit of a note of interest, I guess. The original dialogue, when we shot that scene, they changed it slightly, but she said, Sizemore asked Charlotte, "Are you downloading his narrative?" And she says, "No, that's your job. You're the writer." I think that was still in there.
All right.
And he said, pardon me, she said, "But you're going to only have 5 megabytes." And he goes, "He'll be a blooming idiot." Because there's just not going to be a lot of room for a personality. And so when he said there was a semblance of a personality. But Jonah Nolan in a recent interview said that, or maybe it was Lisa, that we're not picking up where we left off.
Right.
So I have no idea. It could be in the past, the future.
Right. You could be a samurai for all we know.
Boy, I'm going to need some training. My samurai sword.
But there's so many options. It literally could be anything. And so when you are presented with that sort of like limitless world, if there was a Westworld that existed, or this technology existed, what world would you want to visit? Without
question, Westworld.
So you're a Western guy.
Red-blooded American boys always wanted to be playing cowboys and Indians. And then growing up as an actor, everybody, all guys.
You're actually playing cowboys and Indians and getting paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm fascinated. Like the old movie, the original movie fascinated me. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that movie many times, and before I got the job, I had seen it many times, and it's very fresh in my mind. So, Roman world and
right, like it was like
medieval world.
Yeah.
They would be fun to visit, but if I had a choice, and then samurai world, be really interesting, but I'd be afraid of being decapitated in that world. I mean, those guys are a little too handy with those swords, and they're sharp. I have one. They're sharp.
Well, so you're already prepared.
I could bring my own samurai, at least, sword.
But do you think if there was a Westworld that you would go to it? Like assuming you could afford it.
Assuming I could afford $40,000 a day. Now, as some of the complete maniacal fans found out by freeze framing on one of the iPads or whatever you call those things,
right.
That it was taking place in about 2054, I think it was. And which was the only way I found out on Reddit or somewhere. And so it's $40,000 a day in 2054.
Right. Imagine how much it's going to cost when it actually exists.
Right. Well, but if it was today in 2017, maybe it would only be $20,000.
Right. I still don't think we're going.
Yeah. No. So if I was a one percenter.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'd go. Sure. Of course I would.
So, of all the did you follow the crazy fan theories as people were getting super into it?
I did. I mean, to a degree, I've forgotten a bunch of them. Someone asked me that the other day, and I really couldn't think of some of the crazy ones. And so I asked the interviewer, I said, "What was your favorite?" And he said that it's happening on a different planet. And I go, "Oh, well, okay, yeah, I remember that."
That was the first thing I asked Jonah and Lisa at press tour. I said, "Is this happening on Earth?" And they're like, they wouldn't tell me.
They wouldn't tell you. Well, they're not going to tell you anything. You know,
No.
they're not going to tell you anything, which
It's better
I love.
not to know, though. It's
It
like
is
the
better
journey
not
is fun, but you're going back to shoot soon.
Yes, soon. I'd say in a month or so. I mean,
And so
mid-July.
this takes up your time. So I'm imagining, was there something that you did between the hiatus that we will be seeing? Or was Labyrinth
yes.
during the hiatus?
Yes, Labyrinth was during hiatus. That is another gentleman that I so enjoyed working with. Johnny Depp he's the sweetest guy. He really is, very down-to-earth guy, too.
And a very contemporary story. I mean, contemporary LA story. Tell me about you. You're playing a city attorney. Are you playing a real person in the film? Or are you a composite?
I think I'm a composite because I always try to look up, the person, and I couldn't find anybody.
And for the people who don't know, Labyrinth is a Johnny Depp film that's coming out later this year that's about the cop who investigated the murders of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. and ended up not being successful in solving those cases. So you play whose attorney in this?
I play Johnny's attorney.
Okay.
I play the city attorney who is representing him in this case that is being brought against him. And basically, well, without giving too much away, it's just defending his, position that he's not a racist and that I mean, the whole Rampart scandal was so massive that, but it doesn't, just all the strings that are being pulled. I don't want to give too much away, but it's.
I mean, it's a really fraught situation, and I mean, forget sort of just the hip hop aspect of it, but the city aspect of it. When does that film come out?
I don't even know for sure.
It's 2017, though, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say it is. We're saying it is. So put the movie out in 2017.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2017. But boy, there's a lot of programs out there now about this subject. It's at least 3 projects, I believe, that I can think of. I think 2 films and either Jimmy Simpson is playing the same part, Russell Poole.
No kidding.
Yes. Another fantastic human being and extraordinary actor, by the way.
And had, just like yourself, had his profile really nicely raised by Westworld. And it's funny because you have had this, long career with all of these credits, but then in the space of 1 year, you have these 2 big things happening. I mean,
we are a 34-year overnight success.
That's amazing. And you're HBO guy too, so I don't know what happened with Westworld, but you guys and Back Home in Treme and True Blood for your Baton Rouge roots.
Yeah.
And so you've been a werewolf and an android. What's harder?
Without question, the android.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just like naturally have werewolf in you, is what you're saying?
Sure, of course. Oh yeah. I mean, I've played that a few werewolves. Well, The Gates, short-lived ABC show, which would have been.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that show would have really done well had it not debuted in the summer.
In the summer, yeah, and there was witches and warlocks on that show.
Not at all.
Yeah, that show was creepy.
Yeah, it was creepy. It was awesome creepy. But my character was the wolf pack leader.
Right.
And then my son dethrones me. My own son dethrones me. And then, there was going to be this clash between the werewolves and the vampires, and it was my understanding that I would have come back for that, and because I warned Frank Grillo, who played hey, trouble's coming.
Right, exactly.
And
you think you're alpha now.
Yeah, I was so looking forward to it, and then.
But it's funny that you say that, because I watched all of that show because I'm into that kind of stuff. And is there anything that you've ever been on that you've forgotten that you've been on it, and like you see like an old CSI, and you're like, oh look, there I am.
Yeah, I mean, I not so much when I see it. When I see it, it's usually but when somebody will ask me about it, and I'm like, what? What is it?
Like, I did
and they're
the
like,
West
I saw
Wing.
you on this thing. And I'm like, what thing? And you did this and you played that? I'm like, nah, I think you got the wrong guy. And then they'll keep going, oh yeah, that's right.
Right, but that's a market for a good career, I think.
Well, I guess so. Yeah, I'm not going to argue that.
It's success.
I'm not-
You've been working.
I've been working. I'm pleased, and I'm not going to complain a lick.
All right, we have some questions from fans out there in the world.
Well, that's sweet.
Lori would like to know, was there a standout moment for you during season 1?
Well, if I have to start at the top, you know, that scene with Tony,
Yeah.
which took all day to shoot. I mean, we shot that all day. Yeah, I've said to people, if nothing ever happened after that, I have that.
No.
And you know, that's so that would be by far the standout. But I'll be honest with you, being on set just every day was a standout. Career-wise, was a standout.
And it sounded like a lot of fun. I mean, I've talked to Evan, I've talked to James, I've talked to Tony. I think apparently I'll call them that now too. Everybody said it was a lot of fun, and that you guys like had a really good time in between. But did you actually completely understand everything that was happening?
No.
Okay, good. I feel better now.
No.
Oh, God.
But and you know, as far as like what's coming that I don't have a clue about, that to me is extraordinarily exciting. I love that aspect of it. you know.
Discovery, it's coming your way.
Discovery, yeah.
Ellen would like to know, the scene where Peter walks into the abyss of cold storage is incredibly powerful. Can you tell us more about that scene?
I can. First of all, that was the very first scene that I shot on Westworld.
Wow.
Welcome to Westworld. Please take all your clothes off and walk through all these naked people.
Not weird at all.
Yeah. Because it was the very first scene, I had not shot anything else, literally the very first day. I wasn't sure how Jonah wanted that played, and Jonah was directing the pilot, who, by the way, love working with him as a director. He's a real actor's director, besides having this amazing visual, mind, cinematic, I should say. So I said, I said, am I completely lobotomized here? Am I just like, or do you want to, because I did understand what was coming in that scene, and so he said, he said, just start that way. And then we did a take where there was no emotion when Jeffrey whispers in my ear. And then we did another take. He said, ramp it up a little bit. So I did. And then he said, okay, show me some real, a good bit of emotion. And that's the take that they used.
Oh, all right. That's interesting.
That's the take that they used when they go to the close-up and, the eyes were watering. And everybody wanted to know what Jeffrey whispered in my ear. And some people actually got it right by reading lips. But basically he said, goodbye for now, old friend. And then later, in the last take, Jonah must have told him to add something. And he said, goodbye for now, old friend. And don't worry about Dolores. We'll take care of Dolores. And so that's what really...
Got the waterworks going. That's good. See, that's what makes him smart.
Yes,
all right.
exactly.
Nicola asks, what would your dream role be on both stage and screen? Is there something you've always wanted to play?
Wow.
Big question.
That is. I've done so much stage from the time I started acting in the late 70s, early 80s till about 95. Tons of stage. There are roles that I wanted to play that I'm now too old to play.
Technology, baby. Makeup.
Yeah, right.
Costumes.
I don't know. Stanley Kowalski. I mean, come on. Every guy wants to play Stanley.
You could play Stanley Kowalski at your age.
Well, we could cheat it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd have to shave all the gray off.
I want to see you in something in Sam Shepard play, a True West.
Yes, absolutely. I love Sam Shepard. Yeah, that one took me a little off guard because I haven't thought about doing plays in so long. As far as what would the other?
So on stage or on screen? Although
on
I guess
screen. I'd like to do the remake of Bullet. Not the remake, the sequel to Bullet. And
you have a car, right?
I
This
do.
is based on McQueen's car in the movie.
Yeah, it's my homage to that's the movie. That's why I'm in show business, because of watching that film when I was a kid with my dad. And so, yeah.
Oh, not a race car driver, though, which could have been another way to go.
Kind of was on the street as a kid, but You didn't hear that, daughter.
Don't speak.
But yeah, no, I'm refurbishing. It's almost done. It's a '68 fastback, and the color's darker green because I didn't like that color that much, but everything
have
else
your own touch on it.
has my own. Yeah, it's the homage to the color.
That's amazing. All right. A fan asked, who apparently wants to be anonymous, were there any moments in the scripts besides the naked scenes that gave you pause?
No, I can't say that there was.
Even when watching it, like things that you weren't involved in when you were actually sort of watching as a viewer? Because I'm imagining there were scenes that you weren't involved in that might have been like, oh, hey, there's an orgy.
Oh, well, if that's what he means, I don't know about pause as much as, really? Wow, okay.
It is HBO.
Yeah, and the scene, that particular scene where they go to whatever the name of that city was, where the, that was like, wow. But, I guess, in all honesty, when my very first day, the cold storage day, when we walked on to set and I saw that gave me a little pause. It was like, what are they doing? What are we?
And how much are they getting paid? I hope those people
and
got
they
paid
were all
really
like,
well.
between the take, they're all like, yeah, just chatting, just like, I'm like, so that's what a nudist colony must be like.
Very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Finally, Dylan would like to know, did you have the opportunity to travel to Utah to shoot any of your scenes?
I did.
And do you think they'll be headed there for next season?
I would guess they are, and I did. When I find the photograph in the ground, excuse me, we're herding the cattle. That was, a corral that was just thrown up in the middle of this enormously open area with these amazing mountains, and so yeah, I got to shoot there. I had a great time in Utah, and so I would imagine they'll go back there.
But we don't know where it's going, so.
I don't know. We
might. Not a lot of samurais in Utah.
Well, that's true.
I'm just saying. All right, so these last 5 questions are what we call our lightning round. We ask them real fast. You just answer real quick. Don't think too much about it. The first thing that comes to your head, I promise you, we won't get you in trouble. But we'll be happy if we do.
Yeah, but I might be going,
All right. What was the last show you binge watched?
Bloodline.
Oh, the most recent season?
Yeah, but I haven't finished it, so.
All right.
But that's the last show that, and I'm really enjoying it.
All right. I'm guessing you were a Friday Night Lights fan. Did you see Friday Night Lights? If you haven't, you have to go watch it
Kyle.
now.
No.
Oh my God. Okay, that's.
But I'm a fan of his now. I mean, I've always been a fan of it, but that just for whatever. It's too much to watch.
All right. Well, that's your homework assignment.
Okay, because I hear it's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary, and you would have been great on it.
I read for it several times.
And here I'm saying you would have been great on it, and you would have been. All right. What show that you love? It's just one of your favorite shows ever that you would like to sit with somebody else who hasn't seen it yet and enjoy watching them watch it for the first time.
Of all time? Mayberry, Andy Griffith
The
show.
Andy Griffith Show. That's a good one. All right. I think maybe you need to do that with your daughter.
I think that's one of the best. Yeah, I think it's one of the best shows for wholesome family values ever.
Absolutely. And funny, like underrated in retrospect as to how funny that show holds up over time. Yeah. And so maybe I know the answer to this next question. If you could go back and beyond any classic show, what show would it be?
Well, maybe that one, but Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can see I'm really not too far away from Peter Abernathy, really.
Right,
but,
exactly. Until he goes insane.
Until he goes insane. That's true. Thank you. Thanks for adding that, Sarah.
So what genre that you haven't done would you like to try? I feel like you've covered a lot of things. Have you done musicals? Is there something?
I've done musicals on stage. Yeah, I've done several musicals on stage.
So is there anything you haven't done that you'd like to try?
Sure. I mean, I'd like to do some full-blown action picture,
Oh, all right.
Mad Max kind of thing.
Well, I believe they're making more of those. So
well, they are. I mean, I'd like to. I wanted to be a stuntman before I wanted to be an actor.
Oh wow!
So I still have that in me, and I still get to do some of my own stunts if they're not too, crazy. So yeah, I'd love to do something like that, or a racing picture.
All right, we're putting that into the world. So hopefully the next time we see you, you will be like, "That's what I'm working on."
Okay, and I'll give you credit.
We don't need credit. We just want it to happen.
Okay.
Walter White or Tony Soprano?
Ooh.
Yeah, right?
Cruel. God, that's cruel. I love them both. But I've worked with Mr. White,
Yes.
so I'm going to go with him because he's truly just a phenomenal human being and actor.
Another one that's so
So-
great. If you haven't read his book just came out. It is fantastic.
I've heard, and I will read it. He really was another one of the highlights.
And if people don't remember, Lewis was the person who showed Skylar and Walter their house.
Sold them their house.
That's a pivotal character
In a
on
different
Breaking
life.
Bad. All right, and then finally, what was your first acting job? And was there anything that you learned on that job that you still use today?
Absolutely. My first easy question. My first real acting job was playing Starbuck in The Rainmaker in Richard Nash play. My agent at the time, Dee Cawthorn, from back in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, she knew I wanted to be a stunt person, but I was doing TV commercials and doing some modeling, believe it or not. And it was the 70s. I was young.
What did you model? Now I need to know. Like clothes?
Oh man,
or like
yeah.
catalog? You know, like rifles? Like what?
No, clothes, mostly clothes. But yeah, you'd get a kick out of some of those.
Can
pictures.
we like do a deep dive after this and find you if we like Lewis Herthum underwear model that's out there?
No, you won't find it. I could send it to you, but
It
you
exists,
won't.
though.
It exists.
Okay.
Don't believe me, stacks of it. But she, I walked into her office one day and she handed me the play, and I went, "What's this?" She goes, and I had taken like a starter acting course. I thought, you know, it can't hurt.
Sure.
And so she said, "It's this play, and they're doing it out at the little theater." So I said, "Well, okay. So what?" And she said, "Read it, and you should audition for it." And I'm like, "I don't know if I want to do that. If I'm ready for all that, gee." She just read it. So I read it, and it was wonderful. And so I said, "Well, I really liked it." And she said, "Well, go in and read for Jimmy. He's the brother that is sort of a supporting role." And I thought, if I don't have the courage to do that, how can I do the things that I want to do as a stuntman? So I went in. I'll never forget. I arrived, and there's this big hall, you know, and there's 60, 70 people there at least, maybe more. It was packed. And I'm like, "Where the hell are the auditions?" And like, "Right up there." I'm like, "In front of all these people?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, phew. So I just sucked it up. I read for Jimmy. Then he called me back up, the director, Frank Pope. He read me for Noah, the older brother. And then he read me for Starbuck. And I got Starbuck.
Wow.
And changed my life. After doing that play, the experience of it. And I got a couple award nominations and won one of them. And best debut
Very nice.
at the Baton Rouge Little Theater. And but that was it. That's
And you
when
learn not to be afraid.
I learned not to be afraid, and I learned what my calling was. That's what it was, because that felt perfect. It's like, yep, this is it.
Well, I hope that you sent that person that encouraged you to do that like a muffin basket or something. And if you haven't, go home and do that today.
She's a very close friend, and she gets to the shout out all the time. I
Okay.
give her credit for it because she truly did, you know, make a difference in my life.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us. And stay tuned for more chats here at the LA Times.
Thank you.